Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and it's a bit of a slower week, but still with plenty of Miley. And it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. So full disclosure, I was not prepared for a new episode of Billboard Breakdown today. I saw tweets from Billboard saying that there was data processing issues. That had me thinking I might have a little more time. This might get delayed to tomorrow. Well, no such luck. It was just the charts dropped later in the morning, and while it's actually pretty reasonable to work through, all things considered, if this comes across as a bit more rushed, at least than usual, that's probably why. But anyway, our top 10, and as I predicted, Flowers by Miley Cyrus is now back at number 1. This is not surprising. It's robust in every channel, and the album bump helps stabilize some slowing airplay growth. But that was enough to knock off Last Night by Morgan Wallen down to number 2, which might rule streaming, but it's just not picking up enough radio fast enough, and it really lags on sales. It's probably going to be a margins game for the next couple weeks here. Unfortunately, this strands Kill Bill by SZA at number 3. Yes, the streaming is rock solid, but it looks like the radio may have peaked, and it may have missed the window to really challenge for the top spot. Compare this to Die For You by The Weeknd and Ariana Grande at number 4, which had a weirdly inconsistent week on the radio, but it's now firmly in the downswing with its streaming. It got the number 1, I think they're probably happy with that. Then we got Creepin' by Metro Boomin, 21 Savage, and The Weeknd actually climbing up to number 5. This caught me a bit off guard given that the radio is also somewhat inconsistent, but it did have a good week on streaming, better than I expected, and that might have been just enough of a margin to claw over Boy's a Liar Part 2 by Pink Pantheress and Ice Spice down to number 6, which actually took a small dip on streaming, and while it is finally gaining on the radio, it's just not picking up fast enough. Then re-entering the top 10, we got a few that actually came as predicted. Anti-Hero by Taylor Swift at number 7, which had a weirdly strong week on radio out of nowhere, and Calm Down by Rema and Selena Gomez cracking the top 10 at number 8, which is surging on streams and actually had a really solid week on the radio. I'm honestly kind of shocked that it's getting this sort of run stateside, but with the virality actually picking up, we could be seeing a moment for it. And that's good, the song's really nice. But finally, we got 2 Morgan Wallen songs that are clinging to the top 10. Thought You Should Know at number 9, You Proof at number 10. I mean, when you got both streaming and entrenched radio, this is what's gonna hold up. I could tell you this. But on the flip side, let's go to our losers and dropouts. And look, it's all pretty much Morgan Wallen here, with none of the dropouts really worth noting, and the only other loser being, of course, Red Ruby to Sleaze by Nicki Minaj slipping down to 37. Go figure. But given that 24 of Morgan Wallen's songs lost this week while sticking on to the Hot 100, let's run through them. One Thing at a Time losing to 20, Everything I Love at 29, Ain't That Some at 31, I Wrote the Book at 33, Man Made a Bar with Eric Church at 41, 98 Braves at 48, and Sunrise at 49. Then there's Cowgirls with Ernest at 51, Whiskey Friends at 61, Devil Don't Know at 63, Born with a Beer in My Hand at 67, Dying Man at 70, Neon Star Country Boy Lullaby at 73, Tennessee Numbers at 74, and Tennessee Fans at 76. And around this all out, Hope That's True at 77, Keith Whitley at 80, Me and All Your Reasons at 81, I Deserve a Drink at 85, In the Bible with Hardy at 88, Single Than She Was at 90, 180 Lifestyle at 96, F-150-50 at 97, and One Into Water at 100. Now to our gains and returns. Hey look, it's another week where we got nearly 40 songs picking up, or in reality just returning to roughly where they were. So let's rattle through our scattered few returns first. Yandel 150 by Yandel and Fied at 79, Heaven by Niall Horan at 93, PRC by Peso Pluma and Nathaniel Cano at 95, and Dancing in the Country by Tyler Hubbard at 99. But let's also do what I did last week, but kind of in reverse. Focus on the songs that didn't really move at all, and the more notable gains that might be worth talking about. In the former category, we got the songs that were already kind of stable and they just made minor inroads, like Rockin' a Hard Place by Bailey Zimmerman at 11, Unholy by Sam Smith and Kim Petras at 13, I'm Good Blue by David Guetta and BB Rex at 14, and As It Was by Harry Styles at 15. And you know what, I'll probably throw in Just Wanna Rock by Lil Uzi Vert at 18, Thank God by Kane and Caitlin Brown at 21, Cuff It by Beyonce at 22, Lavender Haze by Taylor Swift at 25, Rich Flex by Drake and 21 Savage at 26, and Going Going Gone by Luke Combs at 27. This is what radio stability will get you. Then there's a few that seem to have enough momentum to weather some of the fluctuations, like Golden Hour by Jake at 40, Painting Pictures by Superstar Pride at 53, looks like it recovered after all, Low by SZA at 83, Que Velvas by Karen Leon and Grupo Frontera at 84, Exi Volvemos by Karol G and Romeo Santos at 94, and Private Landing by Don Toliver, Justin Bieber, and Future at 98. I mean, the only Morgan Wallen song that seems stable is, unfortunately, Thinking About Me at 17. I'm praying for the crash there. But to flip over to our notable gains, there are a few to highlight. As I expected, cuts that held steady last week, like Players by Coi Lerais up to 12, Under the Influence by Chris Brown's at 16, and Sure Thing by Miguel saw spikes up to 24, and it also played out for a big boost for Trance by Metro Boomin, Travis Scott, and Young Thug up to 64. But in terms of gains where I expect to see a bit more momentum, probably Favorite Song by 2C at 36, What He Didn't Do by Carly Pearce up to 52, Ceilings by Lizzie McAlpine at 54, Handle on You by Parker McCollum at 55, In Hamood by Ice Spice at 58, and you know what, Next Thing You Know by Jordan Davis at 60. It's a lot of country, to be sure, but that kind of makes sense filling up the Morgan Wallen vacuum. Hell, there might be more in that lane coming. Now, thankfully, there's a lot less of Miley here to make the new arrivals difficult. We don't really even technically have an album bomb by my criteria this week. We're not even going to start with her. That's going to number 92, Por Las Noches by Peso Pluma.
Tú ya no vas a estar, pasará, solito me dejará.
Okay, a bit of context with this one, given that Peso Pluma is one of the regional Mexican acts that's actually charted multiple times. This song is actually from 2021, but it was remixed relatively recently. Apparently the remix may have gone viral, but the original is what's credited on Billboard, so that's what I'm going to talk about here. And while there's still some of that characteristic brittleness to all the acoustics and the clicking percussion, I will give him a little bit more credit for a slightly more intimate pickup that doesn't quite feel as sloppy as some of his larger collabs. Even if his slightly hoarse vocals sound pretty rough and the song doesn't really have much in the way of flow, even if that might be intentional, it really does sound like a demo. And you know, there's some of that quality to the lyrics too, with the detail in the verses and that sense of lingering misery that I could translate. It sounds like a one-night stand where he may have caught feelings and actually does know better than to chase them out further, where the inexperience might add to the clumsiness, but it does feel sincere. So, okay, look, this style of music doesn't do a lot for me, y'all know that. I would not seek this out, but I do get the appeal of this. It's fine. Number 91, Rose-Colored Lenses by Miley Cyrus. Okay, we gotta start the Miley coverage with arguably the worst song on the album. It's either this or Handstand, I can go either way. Now, that might surprise some folks, given that on the surface, a hazy, blissed-out summer sex jam with a bit of guitar snarl and live drums, that should be easy to like, but then the off-key synths are drizzled all over this mist to create this muggy haze, where the phaser effects on the post-chorus only amplify it. If it's a song about the wonders of nostalgia and hot sex, incidentally, the bedsheets being dirty like sticky sweet lemonade is way less sexy than Miley seems to think that it is, mostly because lemonade is often some shade of yellow, but the entire vibe feels askew here, where it'd be taking the piss out of the nostalgia, pardon the pun, that's what you would expect. As it is, I just find it really unpleasant. Don't like this, skip it. Number 68, Thousand Miles by Miley Cyrus featuring Brandi Carlile.
1,000 miles from anywhere.
Okay, let me get this straight. You get Brandi Carlile for a song, you don't let her write on it for the feature, it's just her for the name recognition and some harmonies that are considerably underutilized, despite the fact that Brandi Carlile's supergroup The Highwomen made some of the most striking harmonies in mainstream country the past 5 years. Granted, that's not the only odd step with this song. The drippy synths that constantly sound like they're on the cusp of dying, the light acoustic touches that drop into a much choppier groove on the hook, where every tone feels kind of askew to really build a driving presence, especially opposite the blockier percussion that of course comes from Mike Will Made It. And you would think for a post-breakup Take to the Road and Brood song that might be the goal, have a bit more of a driving song, but the track's is too goopy and texturally incoherent to really hit there. I don't know, this is one of those songs I really wanted to like, it just doesn't come together, at least for me. Number 56, Jaded by Miley Cyrus.
I'm sorry that you're jaded.
And here's another song I feel like I'm supposed to like more than I do, at least in terms of the content. Miley's reflecting on a failed relationship where she was the one who obviously pushed too hard, and there's just too much damage to really untangle. And it does hurt her when she continues to see him self-destruct and move on, implying that she herself still might have feelings, and maybe something could have worked. She wanted it to. As a companion piece to a song like Wrecking Ball, it actually is kind of fascinating. But again, this is a case where the production just does not pay it off for me. The glossy synths that are cribbed from vaporwave splashing off the drippy guitars that just don't fit with Greg Kurstin's more defined groove and pretty sharp percussion, and it leaves the hook feeling very desaturated and flat to me, especially with how compressed Miley's vocals sound against a pretty restrained melody. Again, this had potential, but the execution, I'm sorry, okay at best. And finally, number 32, River by Miley Cyrus. Okay, fine, I'll actually join the consensus on this one. The most obvious single from Endless Summer Vacation, it's probably the most upbeat and groovy cut on the album. The wiry synth grooves balance out well with the new wave rollick in the guitars, and the splashy gloss works well opposite the horny opulence and glam. That said, I'm not about to call this great, as so many people have. The horns sound really canned, the percussion's really busy, doesn't let the groove build as much flow as it should, and melodically, this isn't as sharp or potent. It calls back to the mid-80s and New Order, but doesn't have that sense of bigness or punch to it. It honestly just feels overmixed. So sure, it is one of the better songs on the album. I'll call it good, but it doesn't get close to the best of Plastic Hearts, which gave us some synth pop bangers and had a little bit more room to breathe and just go off. In other words, yes, it is the best of this week, but I just don't really see it growing on me. And while we're in this territory, Rose-Colored Lenses by Miley Cyrus is absolutely the worst here. That song's got this weird, listless ugliness to its lazy nostalgia bait that does not work for me at all. But next week, eventually Fallout might come from Morgan Wallen, even if I think it's probably going to wind up a quieter week. We will have to see. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.